Hey class, just want to go through this week's work and kind of touch base on our last 2 weeks here as we're getting pretty close. So I'm here in the classroom and we are at homecoming week. So a little bit of drama this week, I'm sure. It is college day. If you can't tell, better you see me now than tomorrow, which is country kids versus country club kids. So yeah, this is a much better look. But I enjoyed reading the forums on your school choice forum posts. I think one thing to consider with that, North Carolina does have a lot of school options. Obviously, when you're looking for jobs, the majority of those openings are going to be within public schools, traditional public schools, as well as a few charters. And then you kind of start narrowing it down into private schools and then Waldorf and Montessori and some of those other schools like that. And I would say, I think probably the biggest thing is get your foot in the door in a county that you want to be in. And even if it's maybe not the best performing school, you got to start somewhere. And you've got to show that you're a good teacher and you've got a couple years of experience. And then it's easier to make a lateral move to another county, to another school, when you can say, hey, I've taught for 3 years. I've got, student discipline under control. I know the classroom. It's just helpful. But, don't be locked into the school you're at. I mean, I know for me, I started teaching in Henderson County at a middle school and did that for 3 years and realized, middle school wasn't my jam. The school, was a tricky school in terms of, economic levels, and it just had a different contrast. And those dynamics made for challenging discipline. And as a new teacher, it was tough for me. And I knew ultimately I didn't want to be in a middle school setting. So, I moved to Buncombe County and I've been at this high school for super long, only because, I haven't had to deal with discipline. It's been a pretty laid back approach with administration. If you're doing what you need to do and your scores are good and you don't get parent complaints, they kind of leave you alone. So, it's been a great fit for me. So just keep that in mind, that every school is going to be a little different and they all have pros and cons. So moving forward to this week's lesson plan, there's a short lesson on North Carolina public school structure, and it does have a quiz with it. So, kind of go through that. It talks about, just how the school system's structured and the dynamics of that, the public school at the state government level. One thing to note is there is a little section about a residency licensure, which is really interesting. So a lot of you guys could start teaching and getting paid to teach now before you finish your education degree. So look at that residency license so you can be in the school system teaching, getting paid, and some of you guys might be doing this now and working towards your degree. So it's a great way to just knock both out at the same time. So take a look at that and you can talk to me or other advisors about that. And then finally, our contemporary issues paper is going to be due this Sunday. So that's our big paper. There's a lot to it, and I'm super psyched to be, to read some of your essays, because I know you guys are passionate about some of those issues and you've researched a lot. A student brought up a good point. If you have additional resources that you're going to use, definitely cite those so you can have more than 4 or 5. I forget what the specific number was. And then in terms of like a limit, I don't want you to go crazy on the page numbers because I know you could write, a 20-page paper on this. But really try to hone your points, narrow it down because some of these topics are really broad and you need to kind of rein it in. Otherwise, it's just, you can't do it justice in 6 pages or 5 pages or something like that. So, think of your thesis statement. And hit each paragraph, with all those points to support it, and looking at the pros and cons, whichever angle you're gonna discuss it, because there's a lot of leeway in terms of how you want to discuss your topic. So I am looking forward to that. So that's about it. And then next week we wrap it up, and there's basically your philosophy of education, and you'll have a small writing assignment with that. So What is your classroom going to look like? How are you going to set it up? What are your goals within the classroom? And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that next week. But reach out if you have questions about the paper or anything else. And we're getting close, guys. All right, see you.